Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, post-match. Serena Williams versus Harmony Tan, Wimbledon 2022, round 1. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video in 3, 2, 1. Serena Williams plays her first match in 364 days. First match since slipping and injuring herself against Alexander Sasnovich on Wimbledon center court. She returns to that very court, but she doesn't come away with the victory. Tan wins, third set, 10-point tiebreak, and it is right now, for my money, the match of the tournament. Before I get into it, let me just say, even in a losing effort, we're talking about this match because it was the return of Serena Williams, essentially, if we're being real here, as great a match as it is. If we needed a reminder for why Serena Williams is not only a great champion, but is box office, knows how to put on a show like few other in the sport, this was it. This was the reminder. Even in a losing effort, that was something. She poured her heart and soul into winning that match. She wore her emotion on her sleeve. She had moments of brilliance, but she could not get it done against a tricky, unconventional, and very inspired opponent in Harmony Tan, who played some fantastic tennis. Let's get into that. So on paper, it seemed like a pretty good draw for Serena. Tan's outside the top 100, not a player who's known to do a ton of damage at this stage in her career. However, Tan is also a stylistic anomaly, a stylistic novelty. She is not like normal players. And I'm not surprised, at least initially, that Serena had a lot of trouble. And then that trouble resurfaced late in the match in crunch time. But let's start by talking about some of the things that Tan does that bothered Serena so much. Look, Tan has no power. She can't generate her own pace. She doesn't have great topspin ground strokes in a conventional sense. She can't really hurt you. What she does is she relies on forcing her opponents into making mistakes, forcing her opponents into errors. And she does this with her variety. I think more than anything, mixing up her pace and her depth. So even though she doesn't hit the ball very hard, there's still a variation that is so drastic in how hard she is hitting the ball, going from drop shots to short slices to total off-pace balls to, when she actually does try to drive it with pace and depth, even though it's not very hard, you have that surprise factor in there, and it can still do damage because her opponents are basically inside the baseline, leaning forward, anticipating the short, slow stuff. But it's really the short, low, slow deliveries that Harmony Tan was sending to Serena Williams' side of the court that was so troublesome for Serena, was so bothersome. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. When the ball does not have a lot of pace and is short in the court and is low, there are a couple of things that are going to happen. First of all, the requirements for precise footwork go through the roof. If the ball comes to me, I don't need to move as much. The adjustments are just not nearly the same as if the ball is sitting in the midcourt. If the ball is not traveling to me, I'm going to have to go to the ball. And when you're forced to step inside the court and attack a ball that's moving slowly, there's a lot of energy requirement, not only from the feet, but also from the racket head, because you're generating all the pace in every rally, and that can become very exhausting, very tiresome. I think mentally and physically, and I thought Serena was impressive physically, all in all, and I'll get to the overall assessment of Serena at the end. But I do think it started to really wear on Serena, and looking back, although Tan on paper was a good opponent in terms of the draw, it would have been nice for Serena, most likely, or nicer for Serena, to have a conventional baseline player who would actually kind of go toe-to-toe and hit hard topspin ground strokes back and forth and kind of slug it out like 80% of players, at least on the WTA Tour, would do. Probably more, but I'll stick with 80%. Tan does not do that. She keeps it low. She keeps it slow. She keeps it short, or actually she really mixes it up is what I should say. So sometimes she'll hit deep, then she'll hit short, but she's not always going for depth, again, like a more conventional baseliner would. So there's energy exertion. I think there's also a different skill set required for Serena. If you have to step inside the baseline and hit balls from low contact point, it's no longer about power. We know that's the thing that comes most naturally to Serena is her power. It'll never go away. It'll never fail her. But once you're moving inside the court, if you're hitting a ground stroke from just behind the service line, let's say Tan hit one of her goading short chips that forces Serena forward against her will. That shot can't be hit hard. That becomes a shot about touch and feel. Synonyms to me, but just using both in case. It's precision, it's placement. You can't hit that ball hard because think about it. Your contact point, the distance between where you have to hit the ball and where the ball needs to bounce is very close. If you're behind the baseline, it becomes far. Now you can hit the ball hard. Now you can rip it. But once you're inside the court, you can't rip it. You got to guide it a little bit. Unless the contact point is high and you can get that nice downward trajectory, that's a different story, right? So it's a different skill set. I think it's a weaker skill set for Serena, having to use the feel. And then you have the decision-making involved. When you have to decide, am I slicing this? Am I driving this? Because the ball is in an awkward spot. Am I approaching the net or am I retreating back after I hit this ball? You're having to make a lot of awkward decisions off of the balls that Harmony Tan is delivering. And I don't think Serena, at her best or anywhere near her best, would have had any trouble doing these things. But a rusty Serena Williams did. And you kind of get it. These are auxiliary skills that Serena was being tested on. There is no way that in her training, over the course of the last, to be honest, I don't know how long, not long enough, but over the course of her Wimbledon preparation, there is no way that she has had as many reps in her mid-court approach shots and drive volleys and lob retrievals and drop shot retrievals. These are things that are always under-trained, okay? The things that are going to be trained more often than not are your meat and potatoes, your serve, your return, your cross courts, your down the lines from behind the baseline. But you can almost guarantee nobody could simulate what Harmony Tan brought to the court. So full credit to Tan and her unique skill set for forcing Serena into those uncomfortable positions where she was uncomfortable and making unforced errors, way too many, over 50 for the match. With that being said, I do believe Serena Williams figured out Harmony Tan in this match. I do believe Serena Williams started to execute from the midcourt, started to key in on her net game and her drive volleys, started to measure those awkward approach shots on a consistent basis. Her serve came alive in the second set. That made a huge difference with Serena winning the second set. And then ultimately, I do think Tan really picked it up in the third and played some of her best tennis, but still, Serena found herself serving for the match. And this is where, more than anything else, lack of match play is going to come in, is going to factor in. Nerve management. That is the thing, even more so than what I just mentioned. That's the thing you can't practice. You can never, ever practice that. Can't get nervous in practice. Not going to happen. Look, I'm not saying that Serena had issues with her nerves just because she blew leads in the super tiebreak up 4-love in the and obviously serving for the match up 30-15 too. I'm not just saying that because of that. I'm saying that because her serve speeds plummeted, which is so on Serena Williams like. I mean, that's not her. Starting to serve as slow as she was, double-digit first serves under pressure. That's not normal Serena. Her approach shots got passive. Like, look at the break point. 30-40 at 5-4. Terribly passive approach shot. She also got passed a couple of times in the breaker. Tan, I think, in the latter stages of the match was really passing Serena on a consistent basis suddenly, because Serena's approach shots, whenever she got tight, they were too passive. And lastly, the footwork. What did Serena in at the end of the match was missed forehands. It was really a barrage of forehand unforced errors. You go back, you watch her footwork on these forehands. It's just not right. She's not in position. There's not enough. She's not getting herself in the right position, and her feet are not doing enough on those missed forehands, and that is why Serena lost. I do think she was the better player once she got comfortable, but she had issues with her nerves in this match after not playing a singles match for 364 days. Coming back on Wimbledon center court, which is a difficult thing to do. Obviously, she elected to play doubles last week in Eastbourne. That was an interesting decision. But yeah, you do expect her to have some trouble. And you always knew that if Serena was going to be dangerous this week at Wimbledon, it wasn't going to be in the first 3 rounds. It would be if she worked her way into form and made the quarters and maybe the semis. Then Serena would have started to likely become a lot more dangerous. But you always knew she would be vulnerable in this situation. By the way, has anyone lost back-to-back matches on center court at Wimbledon? Like, that's a really hard thing to do. Because I don't even think I have to explain it. Like, that's pretty crazy. I wonder if that's ever happened. Let me just quickly say this about Serena. I thought there were technical issues. The finishing, the mid-court approach shots, some of the net play, some of the footwork. I thought there were mental issues, the nerve management. I'll say this. I was really impressed with her physicality. And that's got to be the most important thing at her age. I know there's going to be comments about retirement for Serena. I know people are going to say she's done. She should stop. She should hang it up. Players retire because their bodies give up. Players retire because their bodies can't take it. I was really pleasantly surprised by the explosivity in Serena's movement and her endurance. Now, look, I don't think her cardio was tip-top level. I thought it was average at best, but I've seen actually it worse, and I wouldn't have been surprised if it was far below average, and her rally tolerance in some big moments were actually a big deal in the upper hand that she built in the second and the third set. Very important. So I thought she hung in there. I thought she was fast. I thought she was explosive. The physicality was incredibly encouraging. And at the end of the day, that is most important. That is going to determine how competitive Serena Williams can be, because I guarantee you the nerve management is going to get better. All the technical stuff, the first serve, which didn't really help her much in this match, that is going to get better. What would have been concerning is if Serena looked physically washed up. She did not. That's encouraging. Hope we see more from her. And congratulations to Harmony Tan on a big victory. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.